And I am a survivor.
And I'm a survivor.
And I'm a survivor.
Hi, I am Santina Proctor, the founder of It's Not Your Fault 91 Incorporated, a nonprofit organization that aids victims of domestic violence become survivors. Today's event is titled From Victim to Survivor. The purpose is to bring awareness to domestic violence and give hope to anyone who may still be victimized.
My name is Rebecca Felton and I am a survivor.
My name is Shay Gaskins Valentine and I'm a survivor.
My name is Crystal Davis and I'm a survivor.
Hi, I'm Santina Proctor, the founder of It's Not Your Fault 91 Incorporated. And the purpose of today's discussion is to bring awareness to domestic violence and give hope to anyone who may still be a victim of this epidemic. According to womenshealth.gov, there are more than 15 million children that witness domestic violence each year. The boys who witness domestic violence are 10 times more likely to become abusers, and the girls are 6 times more likely to become sexually abused. My experience with domestic violence comes from witnessing my mother endure every form of abuse until she lost her life when she was only 30 years old and I was 7. So my first question for you all is, did any of you witness domestic violence as a child? And if so, do you believe the abuse contributed to your abusive relationship?
Yes, I do. My mother was abused, and for a long time I thought that was the way it was supposed to be. I thought that it was okay for a man to hit a woman. I watched her fight without every man that she had.
Yes, I did as well. My dad mistreated my mom, and I thought it was okay because he did it. And even today at 42, my dad has never told me he loved me. But he's in my life, he's an active part of my life, and I feel that because of how my dad treated my mom and because of how my dad treats me today, that he was the cause of me being abused.
I saw my mom get abused by my dad and my stepdad. But I don't think that equated to me being abused. I guess I'll tell that when I tell my story, so it makes sense, but I don't think it equates to that, because I knew that it was wrong. So I just knew that it was wrong. But I don't think it equated to me being abused.
So for you, Crystal, it's the opposite effect that it had on Rebecca and Shay. You saw it and said, you know what, that's not cool. Mm-hmm. And you two viewed it as it being, this is love. This is how a man shows a woman that he loves her.
Yeah, I felt that it was okay because, again, today at 42, my dad still never told me that he loved me. And I asked, I begged on my 35th birthday for him to give me that gift, just to tell me that you love me. My father always told me action speaks louder than words. So I don't know what the word of having the one person that was to give me life to tell me you love me. So I still don't know what that feels like.
I don't think it's not you, it's your dad. Like there's something that happened to him that makes him that way. So you kind of gotta not forgive him, yes, but I guarantee you probably never experienced that.
No, he hasn't, because he didn't come from that type of family.
So he doesn't know.
He doesn't know how to give love. You know that people say that you gotta know how to give it to get it. You know, so he didn't, and he still doesn't. I mean, but I beg him, and I have forgiven him, because in order for me to go where I need to go, I've got to forgive him. I couldn't hold on to it any longer, so.
He probably doesn't even know what to do to even figure it out for himself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because, our parents come from a time where you don't say nothing about nothing that's negative, about nobody, about anything. The way it is the way it is. So unfortunately, it's instilled in a lot of our parents, so it affects them more. And the sad part about it is, you're healed, you're moving on, and he's potentially not, you know?
What I've learned along the way, although my father, he didn't abuse my mother, it was by her boyfriend. My dad and I, we had an off and on again relationship. And I was looking for something from my dad for so long that he wasn't able to give me. And once I realized he wasn't able to give that to me, I understood who he was. Not that he didn't love me, but he gave me what he had. So maybe if you can find peace in knowing that your dad gave you what he had, if it was being a provider or however he showed you, like he said, love is an action word, he gave you what he had. So maybe that validity is not necessary. The next thing, according to the Center for Disease Control, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 10 men will be a victim of some form of domestic violence in their lifetime. How old were you when you first experienced domestic violence, and in what form was it?
I was 20.
You were 20?
20. Physical.
Did it start off physical? Did he just come right out and?
It was verbal. It was verbal first. And then it became physical.
Okay.
I honestly don't know. I think I've been abused my whole life and don't realize it. I mean, I think it's part of getting to know what's happened to me and then thinking about like how men talk to you, things that I accepted it. So I really feel like my whole entire life I was abused.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with her. I was abused when I was a kid from my family. Like verbally abused, physically abused by my mom, by my dad, by my brothers. But it's crazy because I didn't realize it was wrong until I was like 13. Like, so I'm thankful that I didn't realize it was wrong, so I wasn't affected as other people might be, versus living with that. Like, I just grew up thinking that's the way it was supposed to be. And God really like opened my eyes one day with scripture, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, that wasn't right.
Right.
Then I started looking at my family, and I don't know, I've always just been able to see the outside looking in. So I was abused since probably about 10 that I can remember. Probably done before that, but when I was a kid.
So for you two, when is the first time a man that you were intimate abused you?
It was one time, and I think I was 22, 23.
Yeah, I was about 23.
And it was physical for both of you? So as an advocate that I am for domestic violence, I encounter a lot of women that don't realize they are in an abusive relationship. They often say, you know, me and my boyfriend or me and my husband, we fight. But they don't realize that that is abuse. So when did you realize you were in an abusive relationship? And did you have the common misconception as other women may have?
Well, for me, I grew up around abuse within my household. I also grew up around people that were abused. And I was like the Harriet Tubman of that. Like, girl, you can get out, you can leave, you could, you know, that was my thought based on the things that I knew. At that time, I was not physically abused by a man. But just seeing my mom and other people, I'm like, I felt it was easier. It seemed easier to get out than what it actually really is. And so when I was abused by somebody that I didn't have an argument with, that I didn't have problems with. We didn't have situations. It was like it was a one-time situation, and it was enough for me. But I realized in that process I didn't know my mate. I didn't really know him. I didn't know he had some stuff going on with as far as being he had anger management. He had anger issues, and he was going to therapy for it. It was like a lot of stuff in the process. But I also understood how people said, because it was like the mental abuse I experienced after that I fought with not to take him back. Like, I felt the struggle of him calling me crying and, you know, being apologetic about it. I felt the fight within myself as a woman, because we were taught that men don't cry. And so when he's being emotional and he's crying, you're like, oh, he has to be telling the truth because he's emotional. And for me, I felt like God gave me that epiphany for me to understand the person that does that. Because before a person can physically touch you, they have to get you mentally. You know, we date, you know, even people that we've been with, we usually are with them based on where we are in our own being. And he actually caught me on a rebound from another relationship. And so I probably never would have really talked to him if I'm in a different mental space. So he kind of already had me there, probably unknowingly and knowingly. And so when he did hit me, it was one time. But then I thought to myself, what if I burn the french fries? What if this happens? What will happen the next time? And I was actually in fear. And now that I had insight of who he was, everything about him made me afraid. And so I had to like separate myself from him. So I didn't stay with him, you know, for a long period of time after that, but I understood why people stay. Which is why I tell people now, like, people are like, oh, you could just leave. I'm like, it's really not that easy. And I say that from the standpoint of people who have houses and cars and people who have children and they're married. It's not as easy as we think on the outside to say, hey girl, just leave and come stay with me. No, it's so much deeper than that. So I feel like that's why I went through that, to understand it for somebody else.
In my case, I stayed. I did the normal abuse. I allowed him to keep doing it. I thought about it. Nobody else wanted me. Nobody else was gonna ever want me. I was a mother with 3 kids, taking care of my kids by myself, and he would tell me ultimately all the time that, you know, you're never gonna amount to nothing. Nobody wants you like I want you. So I stayed. I thought it was easier. I was embarrassed because I didn't want to tell anybody what he was doing to me. I stayed. I just thought that it was easier, and I thought I could make it better. You know, like what could I do to make it better? What things could I stay and let him do to me and keep this? He was fine. He was gorgeous. So why would I leave him? I mean, so like when I finally set myself free was when I saw my blood all across the wall and my son walks in.
So hold that thought for a deeper question. So when did you realize you were in that abuse? When did you wake up and say, you know what, this is toxic, like this is an abusive relationship?
When I called my mom and she didn't believe me. That's when I knew it was toxic. When my mom she didn't believe her.
How did that conversation go?
It's basically like, Mom, I want to kill myself. I want to die. I want him to kill me, or I want to die. And my mom just thought, there's no way possible he could be doing this to me. You know, so it was the hardest thing I ever went through in my life, was to tell her that, you know, I'm calling you because I need you. And you know, she didn't believe me. So that's when I knew that if I'm telling the one person who's supposed to believe me, and she don't believe me, then I know.
Is your mom abused?
Literally, my dad, but it wasn't even that. My mom is a minister. And my mom, like, I'm the black sheep. I'm the child that got the tattoo, who got the piercing, you know, to do everything different. So it was more like, when I picked up the phone, I'm lying. You know, I'm lying. So it's like, whereas with her other kids, well, with my sister and my baby brother, not my older brother, but with them, they tell lies and theirs is the truth. I'm telling you the truth and you're not believing anything that I'm saying. So at the time, it hurt me more that she did that. It hurt me more, but it made me become the woman that I am now. Because I would never treat my kids the way my mom and my dad treated me. I would never. So I'm thankful for them. Because whether you told me you love me, or whether you believe me when I really truly needed you, you made me the woman I am today.
When my mom found out I was abused, she was in denial for a long time. Like, to this day, and then like randomly one day she called me crying and was like, I'm sorry, I'm sexual. Like, our parents sometimes just don't know what they just don't know what to say. Like,
I would love to hear my mom call me and say, I'm sorry, I couldn't protect you. But I don't think that's what it was. My mom truly did not believe that this man, you know, like when we meet a man, we meet their representative. We don't really meet the real person until time goes on. And it's the same thing vice versa. Because women do the same thing to men. It's not like it's just a sex thing. It's just the world. It's how we all. You meet people and they come to you fictitiously. And then when you really get to know them, you're like, oh man, I really didn't like that person. You know, whatever. So I think that throughout the time and the journey of my life with my parents, I really didn't like my mom and my dad. I really, truly did not like them. My grandmother raised me. My grandmother left me. When my grandmother left me, I feel like everything inside of me left. My mom died. That's the way I truly feel. Because my mother didn't raise me. My mother chose men over me. My mother chose life over me. My mother chose a whole lot of things over me. So I really feel like through the situation, I don't blame her. I will not blame my father. I will not blame anybody for it. It's me because, you know how they say you can change how your life is if you choose to. I made a choice to allow a man to beat me. I made a choice to fix myself, to repair myself. My mother and my daddy's not repaired, and they never will be, because they're not going to step forward and face it. And they don't want to deal with the repercussions of what people are going to say about them. They're never going to deal with that. So this, me coming out and telling my story, is a healing for Shaq. It's a healing for my relationship with my husband. Because if I can't get me right, there's no way in hell he can ever love me. So this is a healing for me. It's not about me. It's not about me.
Rebecca, do you want to go back to the question? Okay, so when did you realize you were in an abusive relationship? And did you have the same misconception that many women have, that you were just fighting? So he wasn't abusing you, you were just fighting, or did you know it was abuse?
I pretty much knew it was abuse. Because like I said, my mother was abused. I watched her fist fight. She cut, she did whatever she had to do to fight him. And so me and my sister was younger, we taking forks and knives, and we going at the man. So pretty much when I got into my first one, it was more so like I was amped up, like I'm ready, like because I know this is what I'm supposed to expect. This is what I'm supposed to be going through. So when I first started experiencing abuse and domestic violence, I was also fighting. It wasn't that I was being abused per se, it was both of us. It was more so me hitting him back until I got to the point where there was no more fight.
So the key word you just said for me is back. So you said I was fighting him.
Mm-hmm.
I was hitting him back. So that's abuse.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a fight. That's you protecting yourself. And that's a lot of women feel like I fought back. He didn't just beat me. He didn't just do this. No, you are being abused, and women need to understand that. You can't be the man. I mean, it's some women who can be the man. But ultimately, that man is designed to be stronger than a woman. And even if you fight back, even if you hit back, you are still being abused. So studies show that it takes a woman an average of 7 times to leave an abusive relationship, meaning she will leave and come back. She will leave and come back. She will leave and come back. Women stay in abusive relationships for all types of reasons. What made you stay in an abusive relationship? Not you, Diggs, because, her name is Diggs also. She knew immediately, like, this is not what's up. What made you stay, Rebecca? And how long did you stay?
I stayed being abused for 5 years. We was already together 5 years. And I stayed being abused for 5 years because at that point I had children. We didn't investigate and purchase our first home together. We had vehicles. Everything in our home was furnished, paid for. There was no debt. So I felt like at a point of my life, I felt like, hey, I'm living better than I've ever lived in my life. My mother was raised very poor. We house hopped. We had to go live with different family members because of how poor we was. My mother did the best she could because she was sick in our whole life. So for me to just be like, okay, I'm showing my kids not even a little bit of what I had to experience, made me feel like there was something here, something worth fighting for. And I didn't understand until after I actually had a sit down with my pastor on what I was doing wrong. And after my first one, that was the first time I left. And I went like that.
How many times did it take you before you stayed gone?
I know I left at least 5 times. At least 5 times.
And when you came back, was the abuse worse?
Not at first. We would go a little bit even without arguing. So then when the first argument occurred, it just sparked. It was like, I tensed, I'm scared. So then I'm like, okay, at this point, do I leave or do I continue to try to make this marriage work? It was always back and forth, like I'm scared to leave, I'm scared to stay. So it was a more mental battle for me, when is the right time to leave. Because I had my girls looking up at me. I'm thinking I'm showing them the right way because like I said, how I was raised. So I'm thinking I'm showing them a better way, but actually I was hurting them. I was showing them abuse.
Shay, what made you stay and how long did you stay?
I stayed, because it's more than one, but I stayed. I just stayed. I stayed the whole relationship. I can't tell you how many times I got beat. I didn't know any different. So I just stayed.
So did you ever try to leave, or was it one big time you left?
The one that really has impacted me the most. I left several times. I called domestic violence places and would get help and leave, and then he would call on my phone and he would blow my phone up, and I would turn right back and I'd go right back to him. He just had like all this convincing reasons to why I should, and then when I go back, it would be great. He would shower me with gifts. This was with my last one that really impacted me in life. First man that ever bought me underwear, bought me bras, bought me stuff that, to make me feel better. But then every time he bought me stuff like that was when he beat me and to make me feel better. And then I watched, the Tyler Perry movie, and I remember him putting me in a tub of Epsom salt, and I'm hurting from where he beat me. So when I left and came back, I left and I came back because I felt like I could never do without him. I didn't think I could, be alone. So I did not love Shaq. I did not love me whatsoever. So I love the man more than I love myself.
So what we also have to know in all situations, in all relationships, is that the person who hurt you is not the person that can help you heal. It is not possible. So when they call you back, you can tell this to your daughters, your girlfriends, whoever. When they call you back and tell you, we can get through this, no, we cannot get through this. I have a problem with thinking this is okay, but you have a problem with abusing me. So the person that hurt you cannot help you heal because they want you to heal on their terms. They don't want you to cry every day about it. They don't want you to bring it back up. They may not even want you to go to counseling about it. They want you to figure it out however they want you to figure it out. Is it if I bought you bra and panties and now you should be good? Then that's the way you heal. And that's not acceptable. So the person who hurt you can never be the person that helps you heal. What was the defining moment when you realized enough was enough and you deserve better? I like how you said it, Crystal, you knew right then because it became mental for you. Like
I think that for me, it's crazy. I don't tell my own story. Like, I felt like, I felt like mine owned nothing. Like, compared to stuff that I know about people, things that I remember my coworker, she used to be abused. Everybody at the job knew. Everybody knew she was getting abused by her husband. And I remember I rolled up because I rolled my chair next to her and I was just like, hey, so you stay with me. Husband don't know who I am, he doesn't know where I live, he can stay with me. And she said, but if I go or if I leave him, who will take out the trash? Who will pay the bills? I was like, what? He did so much that he crippled her. And yet she worked. Financially, she worked, but he still controlled everything to the point that she felt so reliable to him that she was afraid to leave because of that. And at that moment, I didn't understand. I'm like, girl, he would come pick up and I'd be like, man, I want to let him have it, And then, so when it happened to me, the person that I was with, it was the most random experience. It was April 9th, 2001. Random experience. I was watching TV. He said, hey, can I borrow your car? And I said, no. And I didn't say no next. I was just like, nah. Because I went out of town, my car was making noises, and his car, he got into a car accident. And then he punched me in my face. But as crazy as it sounds, he punched me, but not hard enough. I had to pause, and I was like, you punched me? Like, you just punched me. I grew up a fighter. I grew up a legit fighter. I grew up a fighter. So I was like, did you punch me? And I remember standing up like, did you punch me? And I don't know if I egged him on or when I said that, but in my mind, I'm like, okay, I really can't fight this dude. Like, I'm ready to go toe to toe with him, but I can't fight him. You know what I'm saying? And next thing I know, like, it got bad. It got really bad. Like, he was dragging me, and I was just like, really, I was talking to him like, really, like, just take the car. I remember just crying like, yo, just take the car. Like, yo, because my daughter was in the room sleeping. And I thought that if I fought her back, and I didn't, because I had weapons in the house. So I thought if I didn't get to them in enough time, and if I didn't use it in the right way, that he would kill me. And my thought was, I don't want my daughter to wake up and I'm dead. And so, but the thing about this, prior to that point, we never had no arguments. We never had no problems. So for him to come at me like that just threw me off, like, and it was crazy. So my daughter, I went in the room and I grabbed her, and I felt like she was a force field because I grabbed her. As soon as I grabbed her, he was chasing me. And when I grabbed her, he saw she was like, he froze. He just grabbed the keys and he left. And I was like, what the hell was that? Like, I called the police, I called my brother. At the time, my dad was a cop. I called my neighbor, we can make him disappear. We can make him, what you need to do. And in my mind, I thought about them. I thought about their families. I thought about what it would do for them to retaliate on the situation. You know what I'm saying? I remember like that whole process. And so he was living with me at the time. And so I moved out of the house in like a matter of 2 hours. We packed the entire house up and went to stay at my brother's house for the night. Well, I was gonna stay over there. And what's crazy about it is, I think internally, my gut knew something was wrong with him, but I didn't have him to pinpoint it because I had got a new job. And I didn't tell him. And so that Monday morning, I went to my new job. He went to my job looking for me. No, she wasn't working no more. And I didn't think about those things at that time. It was just like, okay, when I was going through this stuff, I realized that he had, it's not the first situation he has been in, that he actually has anger issues, and he's actually going to mandated, reported anger counseling and all these different things of the nature. And so I was just like, wow, I knew him, but I didn't know him at all. And so he was finally able to get in contact with me. It was the crying part, like the crying, and I'm like on the phone, like, yeah, but I'm legit scared. Like, I can't live in fear. Like, I can't. And I will say, I did take him back, but I knew I was leaving. Like, I took him back, but I was like, I keep him with these bills while I exit out. And I ended up moving away, which is kind of one of the reasons why I ended up getting here. But he ended up going to jail. He ended up going to jail for 2 years because he violated probation, because he had a reputation of this. And for me, I just felt like I didn't know my mate. I didn't know it. But it gave me so much sympathy and understanding to people who stay. Because even after I moved away, he tracked me down when I moved here. Still calling, and I'm still like feeling that heartstring, like, because he's emotional, that's not what men do. You know what I'm saying? And so I know some people are not as nice about, oh, she should just leave. I'm like, nah. Maybe I can't just leave. Yeah. Like, I went through it one time, and I think for me, feeling that struggle when he called, he was crying. Like, I remember standing outside my brother's house, because he didn't know my brother. That was the crazy part. He didn't know my brother lived. He couldn't find me. And it was like, there was a part of me that kept all this stuff secret from him. So he's, now I have people in my neighborhood, what's the crazy part about it is, as a matter of fact, I just remember, you know why I didn't stay? So I didn't change my locks. I didn't think about changing my locks. Maybe like 3 weeks after, I went back to the house. And my neighbor used to watch my house. He used to watch to make sure I was good and stuff like that. My neighbors were like good neighbors, so they trained to go, if I call and say something, they come across the street, and my neighbor had came by, and he was just like, hey, as soon as I came in, he rang the bell. He was just like, hey, Dave, you good? I'm like, yeah, I'm good, you know, X, Y, and Z. Meantime, my ex is in the room with the bed. When I came into my apartment, my bathroom is directly across from my bedroom. So you went to the bathroom, when you come out the bedroom, look right to the bedroom. So you know you went in the house, I ran to the bathroom. When I came out of the bathroom, he was sitting on the bed in the dark. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna kill me. Because I wouldn't answer my phone, he didn't know what's going on with me, and my neighbor knocked at the door. And I went to the door, and my neighbor was like, you good, Dex? You alright? You know, I was like, yeah, I'm good. But I was really like, okay. Like that TV stuff, like I was doing that TV stuff, like legit. My daughter just, and she in her room, she went right to her room, so she not even went into, she's in the back. And in my mind, I'm like, this could go bad really, really, really fast. I told the guy, I said, nah, I'm good, so he left. And I think that scared my ex to the point where he came up to me, he was like, oh, I'm out. He just left. And after that, I was like, yeah, I can't. I couldn't do it after that. Like, even, and the thing about it was, I was considering it. I was authentically considering, you know what, he might be different. It might be a one-off situation. But that woman, she's sitting in my home in the dark. Yeah, we can wrap this up. And I knew I just couldn't live like that with my daughter. Maybe if I didn't have my daughter, I probably would have been a little bit more open to it and try to understand it better. But I was afraid we both be dead. So after that, I never whenever I'm at.
So Shay, what was your defining moment?
When my wall was covered with my blood, when I begged him to kill me, I asked him to kill me. I told him, I was like, you want to go to jail anyway. That's all you really do know. Kill me. And we were like fighting, and I remember scratching his face, and you know, I remember really like, because my dad was in the military, my dad always told me about these pressure points to kill somebody. And I remember in my mind saying, okay, am I going to be able to apply enough pressure? Because he was a professional boxer. So how can I apply pressure to this body? There's no way I can apply pressure. So that one particular, that moment of clarity where I remember my son coming into the house and my son yelling my name, and my bedroom door was closed, and he had just beat me. I'm talking about he had beat me to the point that it was just like, I couldn't even recognize myself. And on the wall was my blood. And it was just like spray painted on the wall. And I'm just looking at the wall like, God, what is this? Like, I'm like, what in the world? And I just begged this man to kill me. So in my mind it flipped, because I'm getting ready to kill you. And in my mind I had to sit there and I had to think, because like he had walked out, he was like, I'm gonna come back, and I thought about poisoning him. I thought about letting him go to sleep and me just gutting him in the bed. All those things was going through my mind, and I'm sitting there saying, do I want to leave my kids? Do I want to go to prison? That's when I had a reality check, like, hey, you getting beat up, you get ready to put yourself in jail for the man that beat you. And I was the one that, you know, like, no, I don't want to go to police. You know, I don't want to tell my friends, because, oh, my pretty friend or my slim friend or something is going to talk about me. I was so worried about all those things, and it was just like all of a sudden God just gave me a reality check. Like, you brought 3 boys in this world, and you get ready to leave your boys. Who gonna take care of your children? Who gonna take care of your kids? Because ain't nobody gonna take care of them. So it was just like I had that reality check. So I let him beat me again, and I let the police take him. I let him beat me again. I said, God, this is it. I'm gonna let him beat me, and my blood was all over his hands, his knuckles was busted. My chest was black. They took pictures of my body with no clothes on, and I was violated. And that's when I knew I was done. But I needed it. Because if you beat me before, I cover up. I put on shades. You know, I was covering it up. So when he beat me the last and final time, I got a scar permanently on my face. My jaw was dislocated from that one he sucker punched me. And I heard my jaw just go. And I was like, oh my God. And then I thank God for this officer who told me I was the stupidest thing in the world. He told me straight to my face, which other people would think that it's bad that he said it. No, he was trying to get me to look into me. He was like, you're not doing anything. He's throwing pictures of me out. He's watched me. And he told me, he said, you're stupid. You are stupid. He was like, you need to get yourself together. I'm booing, I'm crying. And I'm like, I want to slap this cop. I'm looking at this man, I want to punch you. But he was giving me a reality check. He was like, yo, you just can't. And then when I had to pay a bill for a carpet in an apartment, there was my blood on that carpet. You couldn't get that blood out. You could never get that blood out. It was just how many times he had beat me, how many times I bit my tongue from being punched, how many times I had to put, like, I don't even wear makeup. That's not my thing. I had to put on makeup and not know how, and this cheek would be lighter than this cheek because I didn't know what I was doing. It was just too much. And I was just done. I was over with it. But I was like you in a way, I really didn't know, because when they took me and they threatened to arrest me about the lifestyle he was living, he had 42 domestic violence charges. Why is he not in prison? Why is he not in prison? He would beat the system every single time. And he had beat people, but it made it worse. Your mama knew he was beating. How your mama allow you to be green? What kind of mama would allow you to be green and say it's okay and just let it be okay? And you be around with me just laughing, you know. But when I first met him, a woman called me and told me, don't be a fool. And I didn't believe nothing that she said. Nothing. So he had beat her, he had done all these things for her that he did. He did the exact things to me. I mean, literally, honestly, he raped me. He beat me, he degraded me, I mean, there's nothing that he did not do to me, and I still say it.
Where's he at now?
He was in prison, but he's out. He's in the world somewhere. He's in the world. I mean, like, at this point, you know, because I know where I am today, you asked me a few years ago, I probably want to kill him. No, like, he's reaping what he's sown. He's reaping what he's sown. I don't have to put no harm to him, do nothing to him. He's getting beat worse than he ever beat me. So I'm okay with it.
Rebecca, what was your defining moment?
I had left him previous, and it was probably no more than, I would say, 2 to 3 months when I came back. And he had went out. Now, when we first got together, he never went out. Never hung out, never did nothing. He was a respectable man, came home, did what he was supposed to do. And he came in and eyes was bloodshot red. And I was like, where you been? Because it was like 10 o'clock. Like, that was out of the norm, coming at 10 o'clock. Where you been? And he did it. And I flew to the wall. Hit my head on the side of the wall. He grabbed me. He just threw me there. I remember looking at him. And I said, I am not a man, I am your wife. There was no fight in me. I had no more fight. He took my cell phone. He took the house phone. He pushed the chair to the door. And he held me in the house. I remember falling asleep on the floor, hurting. He slept in a chair to go by the door. He was foot on me, so he could feel me if I moved. It was probably around 7 or 8 that next morning. My mother told my uncle, we have to go there because something is not right. She didn't talk to me that whole night. She had my kids already. She didn't talk to me that whole night. She didn't talk to me none that morning because I couldn't respond to any calls. I didn't know she was calling. And her and my uncle came to the house. And my uncle had his gun. And they knocked on the door. And I was right there to her. My mother was outside yelling, do you want to leave? And my uncle said, do you want to leave? And he told him, he called him out by his name and he said, get away from the door. Because if you don't let her, I'm going to blow a hole in this door. And I was screaming, get me out of here. I want to leave. He moved from the door. And I had a blue Nissan Central. I packed everything I had for me and my children. And I drove home. And that was the last time. And I never forget it.
Is he still around? Have you talked to him since then? Did he try to reach into your life?
And at first he wouldn't leave me alone. I left him. I went and stayed with family. He wouldn't leave me alone. He continuously begged. At first, it was a nice beg. At first, it was, you know, I will go to counseling. We need to make this work. Then he realized I got my own apartment. Started riding by. Started showing up. I never got the police involved until there was an incident where we were to the stoplight at the gas station. I was so scared of him. He pulled up at the gas station. I was pumping gas. He pulled up beside me. He hurried up and threw his car for me. And I jumped in my car and I locked the door and he's hitting my window. Open the door, open the door. I'm like, I'm not opening the door. So I pull off, gas nozzle, everything. It's still in the car. I pull off, I get to the stoplight. He gets in his car, he pulls to the stoplight beside me and he reaches for his gun. And I sped off in traffic. Could have killed myself because ongoing traffic was coming. And at that point, I went to the police and I was like, I need a protection order. Like, I can't do this no more. I need help.
don't even, all right, let me get myself together. Because, like, I've never been physically abused. But your story reminds me so much of my mother. It's scary. Like being held hostage and just being so afraid. It just really just made me think of all the times I've seen her be abused and how she didn't have the strength to leave. And the police were involved many times. And she went back many times. And this was early 90s, so I know that the law was different then. I know when certain laws became effective and everything for women. Do you feel like the police helped you?
Yes.
Either you feel like the police helped you?
I know he helped me. This one detective, he basically just took me out of his room. He was like, normally you would go in there and they was like, okay, go see somebody. He didn't. He walked me in there, he sat there with me, he helped me do my paperwork. He even went across to the magistrate office with me. He did everything. He even got to the point where he told me, he said, go get you a gun. He said, go get you a gun. And he said, and don't shoot him outside of your house. Shoot him inside of your house. That's how scared I was. He was riding by and I hit on my doors. I was in my own apartment. I had to move. Like, I left him our house that we provided together for our children. I left everything. I left the memories. I left all the stuff that I had. I left with nothing but clothes. I put my children in a 1-bedroom apartment with not even a bed. And I had the whole house furnished for me and my children. And I left with nothing. It had not been for that officer. I remember sitting in a chair in the doorway like this. And I was just sitting there because I was waiting for him to come in. And at that point, if he would have entered my house, I would have blew his head off. Because that's how scared I was. I was scared to go anywhere. Anytime I went anywhere, I'm constantly looking around. Like, is he going to show up? I can't go in the grocery store. I'm looking around. Is he going to show up in the grocery store? Like, he did that in public. Like, that was the first time that he tried to attack me in public. And I knew it was a gun that he was reaching for because the time before that I left, he pulled a gun on me. He said, you're not going to go anywhere. My baby was 3 months old. He said, you're not going to go anywhere.
And you, Shay, feel like the police were very helpful for you as well.
I think the police saved me.
But you don't feel like the police helped you?
No, when he was beating me up, he actually was choking me. And he was hitting my head against the floor, like the marble floor. So my head was busted and I had all these choke marks and stuff. And so the police came. And so I'm telling them, hey, you know, what's the next step? And they were like, we got to go down to the courthouse and file some paperwork. I can't remember what the exact wording was. But he said, you have to wait till tomorrow. And I was like, why? Whatever the paperwork was, it was a 24-hour thing. Like, we have to wait 24 hours before you can press charges. And I was like, why? He was like, because you might wake up tomorrow and be different. He said, we have so many women that go back and forth that we can't even do the processes right away.
And this was in New York?
New York. And so I was like, what? He said, so if you wake up in the morning, you still want to press charges, take this paperwork and go to this place. And at that very, very moment, at that time, I'm like, hey, one thing he beat me up, he stole my car. So I'm like, I'm gonna press it. He stole my car, he beat me up, you know. So I'm gonna press all these charges against him. And they're like, oh, you can do that, but it has to be after 24 hours. So I had to wait 24 hours before I could go to press charges, just to solidify that I was serious about pressing charges. Because they come out with so many calls, and then you go through this whole process, you arrest them, and they couldn't arrest him because he wasn't there, but typically they arrest the guy, and then the girls, you know,
Don't show
up, they don't press charges, they fall back on whatever they said. And so, I mean, ultimately I did go. I did wait for 24 hours and I did go, but they weren't sympathetic or anything. Like, it wasn't my first time ever, you know, calling. It was like a first situation for me. And they were like, okay, alright, so wait, alright, well, take this paper in 24 hours. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, and so, if it really wasn't for like my, my family, probably at that time, to just kind of like I said, just seeing people, I don't think I have more support from my family or my friends versus like type of outside sources. Because even when I went to try to get help to see what the process was to maybe be relocated and things of that nature, it wasn't really like a priority because it wasn't a pattern. Oh, it's only one time. I'm like, yeah, but I could drive it one time. But for them, me compared to them potentially in that and out there, that made a difference. Like I just had it one time and I couldn't go back home right away. Which is why I ended up going back home because there wasn't no resources for me because it was a one-time situation. It was a one-time situation, but also a one-time documented situation. So I didn't have a paper trail, I didn't have any of those things. And so I was like, I guess I have to go back home.
So that's very common, especially in North Carolina. I worked with a victim who we were trying to get her into a shelter, and they said it wasn't enough. They said, well, we have room for her in this shelter, but we can't accept her because the abuse isn't enough. And I had the young lady call because I always say, before we do emergency assistance, you call and see. And she called me back and told me they said it's not enough. I said, that's not possible. I said, I donate to this shelter. My organization participates with this shelter. No, who did you talk to? She gave me the name. I called back. I asked for that same person. I gave the same information, and she told me the same thing. I said, so you want her to get beat up more before she can have a safe place to stay? I said, well, you're making it sound as if, I said, I'm making it sound as if what you are making it. So the next week, she got beat up worse. And they said, in the beautiful town of Elizabeth City, if y'all know the shelter, now she's too dangerous for our shelter. Now it might cause harm to the other people in the shelter. So she was already not enough. Now it's too far gone. So what do we do with a system like that?
I think that's the part that pisses me off about some of the advocates, which is why I just kind of stay quiet. Because we forget how we got there. We forget what we went through to get to that point. Granted, that wasn't necessarily my story, but I seen my mom be abused, not only by my dad, but by my stepdad. You know what I'm saying? I know people. I had to roll up on a couple people, like friends and family over the years. They're like, yo, what we doing? Like,
right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think people forget the process of the working out part. Like that we still need that same consideration, that same empathy, like, hey, it's not easy. Just because you got out, just because I got out the first time, doesn't mean we any better than somebody got out the seventh time.
Right.
It's all wrong. You know what I'm saying? It's all messed up. And we all need somebody to make us not feel more or worse. Because then you have to fight your own personal feelings of feeling like embarrassed or feeling like a failure for staying that long or feeling stupid. Your own personal shame that you're putting on yourself. And then we go into these advocacies and they're not really advocating for us because we don't look like how they want us to look. And so that's kind of discouraging because it's almost making me go back. So someone's like, okay, so let me go back here and get abused versus going somewhere where they don't really know me for real and they're already showing me they're not going to support me. And people might lose their lives that way. They could potentially have lost their lives that way or lost the opportunity to actually, be free and to, so I feel like every time anybody goes back, it's harder to leave the time after that. Like it's harder to leave the 7th, 8th time. It's harder, it's not easier. It becomes harder because the abuse becomes worse. And everybody doesn't make it out. And so if I'm coming to you, how many times have we seen that storyline in the movie? The woman goes for help, or the guy goes for help, and they got brushed off and then they end up getting hurt and then they get killed. And it's like, oh, she came by that day. Or oh, like that's the part that bothers me. Like, so if you hold them accountable, then we're not being supportive. No, if my life is in your hands, then hold me up.
Right.
They don't care.
So for Rebecca, you had your mother and your uncle, right? to support you. Crystal, you said that you had your family like ready to boss up what you want us to do. And thankfully you had a neighbor. It wasn't even anybody in your bloodline. Your neighbor just God sent to knock on that door. Shay, did you have any family to support you or friends?
I told my friend, and she lived here and I lived in North Carolina, so it was like, really, I was out there by myself. So like when I did, and I'm the one that went to the domestic violence place to talk to them. What I noticed, and the reason why I'm so free now to tell my story, is because it was people in there with degrees, not situations. So people, what bothers me in this part of the world is that a degree can't help you if you ain't been through what I've been through. You can't make me feel good. But that one situation with that lady telling me, I never went back to go get help from a domestic violence place. I really had to do my healing with myself, or meeting people like you on the internet that didn't know me. You couldn't judge me. You could only listen to my story. That's all you could do. So I kind of reached out to a lot of people that didn't know me. I took the fact that these people that shunned me, like one of my friends, we was raised in Fort Greene together. Yes. This girl was my friend. She was my friend, skinny, beautiful. Didn't have no kids by no man when she was young. Didn't do nothing. She threw all that in my face. But I can tell you that everything she threw in my face, God is taking away from her. Because she's losing it piece by piece, and I didn't have to do nothing to you to make you feel any kind of way. You know? So it was just like those kind of people who have fueled me to be better. Because you know, like you want to break that generational curse. You know, you want to break that. Like my grandmother was a prostitute. Let's just keep it 100. My family didn't like my other family. Like this is all I ever lived with my whole entire life. But I can tell you I'm thankful to God. My 3 sons tell me they love me every day.
So you got help from a shelter. You went to a shelter. Did you, Rebecca, know about any domestic violence shelters, advocates, hotline? Did you know any of that existed?
No,
It's not out there. They're not putting it out there like that.
I didn't know anything. I just went back to family. And then family put all my business out there.
And they're still
And
not
family
putting it out
shamed me,
there, right?
Family told everybody in church and everybody around the corner, anybody with a listening ear, family told, you know Tina Man done knocked all upside her head, she done came back down here to Gates County out here. She ain't got no husband, she ain't got... That's what I went through.
What I've learned is that even if someone doesn't tell you they are watching you, they are watching you. And what you say, it really matters. And what you do, it really matters. We are all imperfect, but we all have a story. So if each of you could just give one piece of advice, maybe 2, however y'all want to, on overcoming domestic violence or just having strength in general. How did you find that inner strength? How can you encourage them to get out? Let's start with you, Shay.
Me, I would say to love yourself. Love you, because no matter how much you love somebody else, if you don't love yourself, that love is null and void. You really have to love yourself. Have the courage to love yourself. Not worry about money, not worry about how the bill's gonna get paid, not worry about any of those things, because your blood is on that person's hands. That person will beat you and the light's still gonna be cut off. That person's gonna beat you and you're gonna have all of these bills regardless. I encourage anybody to step away and look in the mirror and ask yourself, is that what you wanna look like? Because I looked at myself and I had to say to myself, Shay, like, yo, you're better than this. Like, you know, you don't deserve it. So if I had to tell anybody anything, I would tell anybody to question yourself on how much you love yourself. Because that beating ain't worth that love. It's not. Love yourself. It's just, you can't tell anybody don't get beat. You can't. That's a lie. People tell you don't get beat. or they say, oh, I would never be in that situation, or oh, I wouldn't do that, or whatever. It's a lie. It's a lie. Abuse don't discriminate. Abuse don't have anything to do with your dollars in your pocket. It don't have nothing to do with what kind of car you drive. It don't have nothing to do whether you're in a rap video, or if you're a lawyer, or if you're a judge or a doctor. It doesn't have anything to do with that. They'll just love you. It's the most important thing. And also, once you begin to love yourself, make sure that you forgive the person that abused you. You have to, because you're holding yourself hostage as long as you allow them to have that control over you. So I just say love yourself.
Either one of y'all.
I love you. I don't know who you are, but it's gonna be okay, and you're gonna get out. And there's somebody on the other side of it that's gonna love you and support you. Like, you're not by yourself. You're not by yourself. Trust me, you're not by yourself. Oh my God, emotional. You are not by yourself. And on the other side of that, there is somebody that loves you. I just met so many women who don't feel they can't get to the self-love because they feel like they're unlovable. But I love you. Just gotta get to the other side. You take the step, I'll take the step with you.
Absolutely.
I'll start with saying, find yourself. Because when you're in the midst of being abused in any kind of, whether it's your mother, your father, or your partner, you lose yourself. You lose yourself, you lose your self-hope, you lose your worthiness, you lose everything about you as if you no longer exist. Find yourself so you can find your inner peace. When you can find your inner peace, then you can become a better person. You can know you can start your healing process. The healing process seems like it's the furthest thing away from you, but the healing process is what you need. Find you somebody that you can talk to. Find somebody that you know you're going to feel comfortable with sharing your story so they can then help you and get you the help that you need. But I say, love yourself. And don't accept it. Don't accept that I'm sorry. We can get through this. With your mother, your father abusing you, don't accept, I'm your mother, I'm your father. Just don't accept it.
So I would like to say thank you so much. It has been a true pleasure just listening to you all, for sharing your truths, for being authentic, for being genuine. I truly, truly appreciate it. I am an advocate that is passionate about this because I don't have a mother. So if I can bring awareness for any other little girl not to end up like me, that is my hope. So you said when we interacted over the internet, I didn't judge you. I had no place to judge you. I had no place because so many people judged my mother. As a little girl, I remember hearing people talk about my mother saying, oh, she's just gonna take them back. Or they getting married, or the police was at Sandy House again as a little girl. So I had no room for judgment. That's not my job. My job is to make sure that somebody else doesn't end up like me or end up like y'all. I don't want more victims. As much as I love seeing people turn into survivors, I don't want anybody to be a victim. It's not okay. But the fact that you all are willing to tell your truth and to step out and to be judged, because that's what's going to happen when this gets on YouTube, when it's on a website, people are going to judge you.
That's the first time I'm telling my story though, for real.
Somebody's going to say you're lying. They're going to say, I know Crystal. That didn't happen. They're going to say, Shay, it wasn't that bad. They're going to say, Rebecca, I don't remember that part. I remember when y'all bought that house. And guess what? Those people aren't for y'all. This is your truth. This is your safe place. This is your time to heal. Get through how you get through. I'm gonna just give some little resources. Leaving an abusive relationship is definitely not easy, but as you all see, these three women are examples that it is definitely possible. If you are in an abusive relationship, there is a domestic violence hotline. You can call from anywhere in the world. It is 1-800-799 7233, and you will be connected with someone who can help you in your area. If you're not able to talk on the phone because your abuser is over your shoulder, you can text Love Is, that is LOVEIS, to 22522. So that's Love Is to 22522. If you are local to Northeast North Carolina or Hampton Roads, Virginia, please visit our website, itsnotyourfault91.com, and we have resources for both areas. If you are in immediate danger, call 911. And if I could give anybody any advice out there is, if you can't leave for yourself, leave for your children.